I just realized everybody is here to party.
Greetings and welcome, fellow barium-inists, fluoroscopists, and cross-table lateralists. I am your host, and I am not a radiology technician. Nope, I'm a technologist, and I've been in this field long enough to know that just because you came into my emergency room at 2 a.m. with a chronic back pain times 6 years does not mean the x-ray should be stabbed. This is the Radiologic Technologist podcast for RadTechs by RadTechs. Thanks for listening.
Welcome again to another RadiologicTechnologist.com update. It looks like we're going to be streaming live today with no webcam. Once again, it's not working properly. It's showing on my side. It's not showing on YouTube's side. If I hop over here to the live stream, what does it look like? Let's see. I'm just seeing a black square, so I'm not shutting the whole thing down again just to turn that back on, so we'll just let that ride. But there's some new things going on out there that I wanted to discuss briefly in our 30 minutes that we have this morning. I like to go through antmini.com and see what the latest news is that's going on out there. As always, please visit the blog at the radiologictechnologist.com, and if you have any questions for me, you're welcome to post them in the comments section below this video, or hop on over to my blog at the radiologictechnologist.com. Click on the contact button at the top, and there's a place for you to add your name, email, and a comment section. Before I get started, there is a comment left on one of the videos the other day as we've been talking about the ThedaCare versus Ascension lawsuit. If you missed that, there was a hospital named ThedaCare that was not paying enough to their technologist, and the 7 out of the 11 of the working members of the IR team left to go to the competitor. Actually, one person left and applied for an online open position, found out how much more they paid, and went back and told their buddies, and they all decided to jump ship. Well, the unhappy employer who was underpaying decided to try to sue the new employer and stop them from taking the staff, claiming it was detrimental to the services being provided to the community. And surprisingly, the initial response from the court was a temporary injunction to stop the whole thing on a Friday. But the following Monday, they held the court. Everybody got to have their say, employees included, and the judge concluded that he could not stop this process in the free market. So we've got a comment from Will on one of the breaking news updates on the ThedaCare versus Ascension, where he says, would you agree that it is clear that all along this was a retaliatory action by ThedaCare towards Ascension? ThedaCare is compelling Ascension to hurt or causing pain, financial pain, because ThedaCare is hurting. ThedaCare would rather spend large sums of money in legal fees rather than match what the competitor was offering. So petty, so sad. I couldn't agree more. Thumbs up on that one. I mentioned that in a couple of these broadcasts where we talked about the case. The employees that left even came back to ThedaCare and said, hey, here's what we've been offered. We'll give you the chance to match it. They didn't even ask for an increase above the match. And ThedaCare, according to the employee who was interviewed by the local news station, according to the employee, ThedaCare said, nope, we're not going to give you any more money. And how does that look? How's that feeling today over at ThedaCare, losing 7 of the 11 IR team? And that's a mixture of nurses and techs. But it's going to affect their newly accredited stroke accreditation. They're a stroke center based on the backs of these technologists that took the time to learn this skill, and now because they were unwilling to match the competitor, they lost 7 of 11. And so you know what they're going to have to do, right? They're going to have to call a travel agency and bring in technologists at $100+ an hour to cover until they can hire long-term employees. And so how does that affect your bottom line over at ThedaCare? Don't you think it would have been better just to match what was being offered instead of being stubborn and trying to make people work for less than they're worth? So yeah, Will, I totally agree. Somebody wasn't thinking the whole process through and decided to attempt an unprecedented lawsuit to stop the free market, and they got the just deserves by having it shut down. So, a couple quick articles to point out in the news today of radiology. For those of you that don't know, all of our isotopes, of course, for nuclear medicine come from different nuclear reactors around the country, and they are spread out all over the world. Last time I checked, we only had about 9 of them that were producing the isotopes that we need, and it's quite the process to get them made and to get them distributed across the globe. And anytime you have a disruption in that process, you're going to have a disruption all the way down to patients not being able to get their nuclear medicine exams completed. So here we have a story about a shutdown of a nuclear reactor in Petten in the Netherlands, which will impact the global supplies of molybdenum-99 and lutetium-177, which is for medical use. And this warning came from Europe's Nuclear Medicine Agency. It doesn't take much to upset the supply chain, and unless you've had your head in the sand the past couple of months, we already have a huge disruption in our supply chain on many levels, thanks to COVID and a lot of the different things that have been happening in our economy over the past couple of years. So nuke med techs, look for a disruption, start planning your where you might be able to get these isotopes from other locations. Work with your sales reps to see what you can do to get around that and start making plans for that. There are coding changes to look forward to for 2022, which of course there's always coding changes every single year. My heart goes out to all the billing and coding people who have to constantly keep up with all of these coding changes, because the bottom line is, as technologists, we may complete these exams in a timely manner, at least we hope to, and we give excellent patient care, and we get reports out to the patients and keep the system running, but we won't get paid, at least the department won't get paid, if the billing and coding is not done appropriately. And it's a very delicate balance to stay on top of all of the billing changes that occur every single year, just like the IRS tax code, it changes every single year. And again, another department where you need to pay your employees appropriately or they're going to leave. And if you lose your coders, you may be paying out all your wages to all your technologists and getting the job done, but you're not going to get reimbursed for it if you don't have billing and coding people in place that know what they're doing. So there's 249 new codes in the current procedural, CPT, current procedural terminology system, that are now in effect for 2022, plus 93 revised codes and 63 that got deleted. So, these guys have to keep track of what they used to use that they can no longer use. They have to know what the new codes are, and then there's codes that get revised and changed. So, for example, there's a radiologic examination complex motion body section other than urography, and it's only unilateral is code 76101, and then there's a bilateral code 76102. And they have codes for everything these days, and it's important to keep track of these. So kudos out to the billing and coding people out there that help keep us on track with getting reimbursed so that we can continue to do our jobs, and look for those changes to be coming to the departments. Another study that I found interesting was this MRI report, where we're starting to see the studies come in about these vaccines that were force mandated on our society for the past 2 years. Many a radiographer was fired for not wanting to put these vaccines in their body, and we continue to see a rift between two camps: those who feel it's absolutely necessary that we get a vaccine in order to save our society, and those who say it is my personal choice whether or not I put that untested chemical into my body. And this study shows part of the problems with the vaccine. Researchers from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC there in Atlanta, have found that in people younger than 30 who developed myocarditis after receiving the mRNA COVID-19 vaccine, more than 70% also had abnormal cardiac MRI results, according to a study published January 25th in JAMA. The findings highlight the fact that although the COVID-19 vaccine offers public health benefits, its risks should be taken into account, especially under particular subgroups of people. And as we'll see in this story, those particular subgroups of people are males under the age of 30. The story goes on to say, we found that the risk of myocarditis after receiving mRNA-based COVID-19 vaccines increased across multiple age and sex strata, and was highest after the second vaccination dose in adolescent males and young men. So it gets even worse after the second dose. But we need 4 doses now, 4 boosters. As a large-scale COVID-19 vaccination program rolled out in late 2020, the CDC began to track any adverse events that occurred in those who were vaccinated, including myocarditis and pericarditis, in the VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. That's been the one place that everybody has been able to go online and see what the adverse events are. They're posted there at vaers.org. Oster and colleagues sought to better understand myocarditis incidence after mRNA-based COVID-19 vaccinations. They used the VAERS data from between December 2020 and August 2021, including information from 192.4 million Americans who were older than 12, who received either the Pfizer, BioNTech, or the Moderna COVID-19 vaccines. Now remember, there were 3 vaccines. This is only 2 of them. I'm not sure why they didn't include the data from the 3rd one. But the team compared actual myocarditis rates found in VAERS data to the expected rates calculated by insurance claims data by age and sex. And here's what they found. Out of The 192.4 million individuals who received the COVID-19 vaccination, 1,626 reports indicated myocarditis. The median age of those with the condition was 21, and the median symptom onset was 2 days post-vaccination, the group found. Most of the myocarditis cases or 82% of them were male. So this is predominantly hitting males. It's hitting the heart, and if you look back through the news stories, I think you'll be surprised to see that we've seen a lot of deaths reported in the media lately on males who suddenly were no longer living within days after vaccination. The team found that myocarditis rates were highest in the following subgroups. After the second Pfizer vaccine dose in boys between 12 to 15. After the initial Pfizer dose in boys between 16 to 17. And in young men between ages 18 and 24 years of age. Compare that to the news articles about the young athletes that are dropping on the field. So, of course, they conclude the findings don't necessarily indicate the incidence of myocarditis is dramatically higher among those vaccinated because, of course, they don't want any funding to get disrupted. But the way the condition plays out is different in these individuals, so it is important to keep a possible connection between the vaccine and myocarditis in mind. The risk of myocarditis should be considered in the context of the benefits of the COVID-19 vaccination. So what you're hearing is the end justifies the means. It's acceptable in some camps that 1,626 people come down with myocarditis. It's acceptable because it's for the greater good that supposedly less people had more mild symptoms when they contracted COVID after getting the vaccine. So we'll see these stories continue to come out showing that the vaccine is causing problems. There's no doubt about that. Interestingly enough, there's also a couple of stories out about Twitter, TikTok, and Snapchat. These have been slow to be embraced by the older generation, the radiologists, and some of those in the boomer and Gen X generation. The first story about Twitter simply correlates that basically when you move things from in-person events to online events, participation drops. Surprise, surprise. Less people attend the online conference, and there is less participation in the trending of hashtagging and tweeting and sharing social media during online events. So the summation of the study was the lack of social interaction and interpersonal communication reduced the opportunities to network, expressed by a smaller number of newly acquired followers among the top 10 users during the most recent virtual RSNA conference. So surprise, surprise, if you're not meeting in person, you're not as interested in what's going on, and you're not as socially connected, and therefore don't tweet and share information as much. Lastly, I'll just bring up the stories on TikTok and Snapchat. Basically, they're just saying that there's an increasing trend of using both inside the world of radiology, which is no surprise as the younger generation start to embrace the technology, and the old stigma of you're not allowed to do these things at work slowly not necessarily starts to fade away in the eyes of administration, because they still tell employees you're not allowed to capture images or video at your workplace due to HIPAA violations. But younger employees are starting to take the liberties of doing this on their breaks or in back rooms or places where there isn't HIPAA information within view of the camera, and they're starting to share things like Snapchat is actually being used to share information with the patients. Radiology residents interpreting emergency cases via Snapchat showed higher accuracy compared with using a traditional classroom screen, wrote one author of a study. This pilot study suggests that Snapchat may have a role in the diagnostic radiologic classroom's evolution. So, again, just looking to integrate the latest of social networking and social media into the world of radiology. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So with that, I'm going to thank you for stopping by and checking in on the channel. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you have not already. Studies suggest that Snapchat may have... Pause that one. We have no other questions and emails from yesterday to address. So I just want to thank you all for supporting the channel and have a great day. Mic muted. So the camera didn't work. Not sure what that was all about. I've got it up right here on my screen. It's working just fine.